no, this one comes down. I thought I needed a booster seat. Okay, thanks to everybody for coming, and let me take this opportunity to thank IFPRI for giving me this opportunity to be here today. It's an institution I hold with high regard. Yeah, it is the institution that midwifed me from being a macroeconomist to micro. Sometimes back 12 years ago, when I got involved in the Vision 2020 and Padial, Rajio, and Suresh Babu. Now, and actually my dream was one day I will work at this particular institution, and my dream has come true. This afternoon I'm working for IFPRI. Let me start working. So I'm here to present results from 3 studies which we did with our colleagues. The names could not fit in this slide, so I just used the names of the lead authors in these papers, which looked at the impact of rising population densities on agricultural intensification in around 5 African countries. But by the time we went to the press, only studies from 3 countries were ready. That's Ethiopia, Kenya, and Malawi. So why am I talking about intensification today? It's because of, as Derek mentioned, population density has been increasing in Africa. And actually, I will be showing you a graph shortly showing you that, for the next 35 years, the population density will increase by very, very high rates. And this is, in the midst of, diminishing scope for accessing more land and also limited off-farm activities. So, what does that really mean? Does the Boserup theory still hold water, that the farmers are not that, if I may use the word dump? When their land becomes more, they become innovative and they use their land more intensively. Is that really happening in Africa? That's what we wanted to examine in these studies. So this is the diagram I was talking about. If you look at the black, I think it's the more black line there. It is the sub-Saharan Africa. You can see from 1950, the population growth has been going up, and you can see in other regions it's like coming down. But for the African region, it is projected to grow in the next 50 years, up to 2050 and beyond. And this is just something to show you we are really, Africa might not be a land abundant country as most people think. When I started working on these projects 2-3 years ago, I started having newspaper cuttings, posting every day and all that, and this is what you see. Neighbor fighting a neighbor of land, somebody killing a relative of land, or a tribe fighting another tribe of a land. Why would you fight over a resource which is considered abundant? It means there must be a problem in that. And we all know in 07 we had the post-election violence, and as late as June this year we also had some violence in Kenya along the coastal region. While the politicians associate this one to, like, the 07 was post-election violence. In June it was Al-Shabaab. But development commentators associate all those violences to, long-term historical land injustices which started way back in independence, and they are not solved up to date. So this is a framework which we use to approach this subject. The ways, the pathways through which population density affect, the main variables of interest, which are the input and output system of equations. And, we have population to the left, and then the output indicators to the right. And then if we assume that the prices, markets are working perfectly there, we would expect population density to affect output and input demand through prices. But if the markets are not working perfectly, then you would expect population density to affect, these outcome indicators, directly. And let me also mention at this point that, population density itself in this equation is not exogenous. So we had to do like a first stage regression, whereby we use some truly exogenous variables. And here we talk about, fertility, indicators. We used about other demographic indicators. And also, when you look up at the literature by demographers, they indicate that, what we are seeing today is as a reason of a shock which started many years ago, even when some of these, communities were not settled in agriculture. So that shock also is affecting what you are seeing today. So that's why it has really been very hard to bring down the growth rate. So we had to draw in some, population densities from 1900, 1910. We had some specialists who managed to gather that data and bring it into our regressions. Data sources, all these studies used panel data ranging from different years. Ethiopia 6 waves, Kenya 5 waves, Malawi 3, and as Derek mentioned, we also had an advantage of using GIS data. Yeah, and this one enabled us to get the population densities in these particular countries, and also more of a better estimation of land estimates, because the land we get from the national statistics is just land, not arable land. But in this particular issue, we are concerned about arable land. Then from there, I moved to the results, and it's just something to whet your appetite so that you can go into the papers. I cannot present everything here, and actually, my terms of reference is like 10 minutes, so I need to be finishing now. So Ethiopia. In this diagram, we are looking at the relationship between fertilizer use and hectares cultivated, and you can see, the y-axis is the fertilizer use, the x-axis is the population density, and you can see, fertilizer use increasing with population density up to around 300 persons per square kilometer, and then from there it is kind of plateauing, sort of. Maybe now this is when Boserup lived, or when she was active in research, maybe the population density was up to 200, 250. But she didn't wait long to see population density reach all the way to around 600 persons per square kilometer. This is also land holding per adult equivalent by population density. No brainer, it's supposed to be going down. Yeah, as the population density increases, the land holding per capita goes down. Then in Kenya, we have fertilizer use per hectare cultivated, the same story. Even this one goes up to around 500, 600. We see, fertilizer use going down. And the dark line represents the bivariate relationship between the two variables. But the dotted one is after the regression. We did some simulation to see exactly when we control for other variables, whether the relationship still holds water. And you can see, it mimics the, the bivariate relationship. When you look at the total expenditure per hectare cultivated, and here I'm talking about expenditure on fertilizer, that's on input fertilizer, seed, land preparation, etc. You can see it's just mimicking the same pattern, going up, and by the time we reach to 500 persons per square kilometer, it comes down. And maybe because of that, we are seeing net crop income per hectare cultivated also coming down, going up and coming down, and so is net crop income per family labor resident in the household. Then for Malawi, the same story. Fertilizer kgs per hectare cultivated by population density, somehow there, by the time we get to 75th percentile of the population, it starts increasing. Somewhere at around 400 persons per square kilometer, it starts coming down. This is gross value of crop output per hectare cultivated, going up but plateauing at around 99 percentile. But when you look at the farm income per adult equivalent with population density, it's like half there, and then by the time you get to 300 persons per square kilometer, it starts coming down. So is value of assets, because basically most of the assets which these farmers use are agricultural assets, so they are related to even the incomes. So in a nutshell, I would say, smallholder farming in Africa is under threat, and something must be done about it, because from these results we are seeing that population densities are supposed to increase by almost 40% for the next 35 years. So it's not a problem we are seeing today and tomorrow is finished. It's going to be there for the next almost 35 years. And as I mentioned, population density is not endogenous. So there are those drivers which started many years ago, and they are pushing it, ahead. So we should be prepared on how to deal with this. And as you saw, the intensification story is holding water up to a certain level, and then now from there, we are seeing, declining trends in agricultural intensification. And for the case of Kenya, around 13% of the population is living in these areas beyond that population threshold. We are talking about the western parts of Kenya, Kisii. We are talking about the areas like Vihiga, whereby most of these areas are more densely populated than Nairobi was in 1980. more than 1,000 persons per square kilometer. They are just small cities in the rural areas. We don't exactly know what is really causing the declining thresholds. We didn't address that in this particular special issue. As researchers, we are smart, because if we finish everything, then after the launch of this issue, I'm jobless. So that's what we are working on at the moment. So we might associate it with the unsustainable kind of agricultural intensification, maybe reduced fallow periods, so soil mining and all that. So those are some of the things we are examining at the moment. Then I think next I might just mention quickly about some of the policy implications from this. I still believe whoever discovered fertilizer or whoever invented fertilizer should not be sleeping on the job. I think there could be some technologies which can work for farms which are less than 1 hectare. So I'm challenging the technologies to come up with the inputs, technologies which can enable us, as the Director General said, to get more from less. We are also talking about infrastructure, and Derek talked about that. And we have an example of Zimbabwe. There was a Goko area which was invested by saxiflies, and the government and private sector came in, collaborated, and they cleared the saxiflies, and people moved in. So we have areas which are still, not accessible because of lack of infrastructure. Like the northern part of Kenya is very dry. If we could invest in irrigation, maybe people can move towards those areas. And then the other thing is just land markets, especially in Ethiopia. If the governments could work on land market, then maybe the people who are holding land, who don't need the land, could let people facing land constraints use that land. And I think I will stop there. Thank you so much.